I've had this conversation with a few different people, people that are amazing, outstanding lead players in their own right. People like Dan Finero, people like Gary Grant, that are in situations where they're not always the top gun. So, like Dan supports Wayne Bergeron. Gary supported Jerry Hay and Chuck Finley for a number of years. And in talking to all of them, it's always been, yeah, certainly I get called to do lead stuff, but I actually feel kind of comfortable being in this position of where I'm a little, I have that responsibility to step forward when it's time for me to step forward, but I also have no problem stepping back when I have to step back. And I think sometimes the lead trumpet mentality can be, I'm the lead player, I'm always the lead player, and it's sometimes hard to step out of that role and to do that in a situation where it's, it could be song to song where you could be bouncing back and forth between, being the lead player and being the second player. Do you find that to be a difficult thing, or did you find it to be a difficult thing? And how did you keep yourself in check to be able to do that and to be able to do that efficiently and effectively to be able to switch your roles?
That's a great question because it's something that I've observed. I think this relates to it. This is something that I've observed my entire career, and that is the higher quality musicians that I've personally worked with at every stage. And and that's been really the story of my life. It's just like having just really great opportunities just to go to this next step until I got to a place that I'm just really like excited about and never get used to, like I'm in. But if I've had a major observance, it's that the higher quality musicians that I've had the opportunity to work with, the less ego exists. There's something about a like top shelf musician, in my experience. I'm sure not every person would have the same story, but in my experience, that's like when people are trying to get there, that's when the most ego comes out. Like, no, I got to be the guy. I got to do this. I have to do this. I have to try to own my space. The people that reach kind of the top shelf, they're like, there's like a quiet confidence. Like it's everybody knows their role. Like, for example, in a big band, it's a very it's a tip of the spear. That lead trumpet, especially in the complete ensemble writing. Lead trumpet obviously is tip of the spear. That's the lead line. And so, but there's a whole group of musicians that are world class that certainly owned the college that they were at, probably owned the town that they were in, owned most every place they were the guy. Everybody listened to them. In this situation with the Note, everybody just kind of lays that down, and it's one of the reasons why the Note is so tight and is so good is because they play the role. The lead trumpet player, when it's a full ensemble, he's listening really hard to Brian. The lead outflow is listening really hard to Brian. The section players are listening in. Everybody's just doing this pyramid to where it's supposed to be. I have literally been in bands on lesser levels where I was a lead player and I would turn to the third player and I would say, can you please cut off here for this? And I would just get a no, because I feel like this is where it needs to be. Like that's a very odd thing to experience, that just kind of egos that won't let go of their space and what they think needs to happen.
Yeah.
But I think it relates to your question, because at a top shelf level, when everybody just assumes the roles, lets the ego go, and just rolls with what's supposed to happen, then you move very quickly through the music. The band sounds incredible because everybody's listening so tightly and intently. And maybe it's a personality thing, but I have never had a problem with that. Me and Brian, we're almost like, no, you play it. No, you play it. No, you play it. Like,
Yeah.
And I've known some bands where like the lead player just wouldn't pass anything, or if there was another guy who could play lead and the chart was passed out, he was like the eyeball and like trying to vibe, like can I play or whatever, like that just has never happened between me and Brian. I think just because we're just both very easygoing personalities, and so that's been nice. When I was at the Academy band and I got to know Chris Walters, he at his retirement ceremony, after being lead trumpet player for an incredibly renowned ensemble, the Falconeers, for like 25 years, he said something that I don't know why, but I will never forget it. This is one of the best lead players I've ever heard, and he said, "I've always thought of myself as a second lead trumpet player, as a second player. I just enjoy, being in the support role whenever I can." And that just like blew my mind. I was like, this is really an example of just like humility and workability in somebody who's got clearly the ability to do whatever he wants and always be the lead guy. But so I've been lucky in that respect. I've heard, stories occasionally in other bands where you hear the egos come out. But I've been super lucky to be in a situation where, with the Airmen of Note that it just doesn't happen. And so it's a real blessing. It's what has made the job so much fun in part.